You're here for the 5 proven tips from powering frontline teams. I'm going to run through a couple of introductions. So today we're speaking with Foodstuffs. And so we have Rue in communications with Foodstuffs and Simon, Chief Digital Officer with Foodstuffs, and Yuxti with Beekeeper moderating our webinar today. Okay, so I'm going to launch a quick poll, and we want to know, how do you ensure that your frontline employees are providing excellent customer service? Now, as that poll rolls through, I'm going to go ahead and run through what we're going to talk about today. So Yuxi is going to kick it off with some frontline workforce challenges. Then Foodstuffs going to go through overcoming frontline challenges, how to deal with rapid change, and the future of frontline empowerment. And then we'll close it all out with a quick Q&A. And with that, I want to turn it over to my colleague Yuxti to take us away.
Thank you, Logan. Before we start the conversation with the amazing Simon and Rue, I will take a few minutes to highlight some of the Beekeeper research regarding the current challenges and trends in frontline work. For those of you that may not know, Beekeeper's mission is to empower frontline businesses with modern technology that makes their workers more engaged, productive, and of course, happy. We do hold a passionate belief that frontline workers are the engine that drives any business. We work with over 1,000 frontline businesses worldwide, and we are one of the very few companies who focuses exclusively on frontline sectors like retail, hospitality, or manufacturing. To set the stage here, we wanted to highlight some challenges we see in the market today, which I'm sure won't surprise any of you. We are seeing a tremendous rise in costs, which is applying a lot of pressure on employees who oftentimes need to find second jobs or a different job that pays more to make ends meet. Our workforce is becoming more globally diverse, and it's getting younger. The result is that the old, archaic ways of working are just not acceptable anymore. So with these 2 points, we're seeing employee engagement has become extremely difficult, and even more so difficult, which is the topic that we will be discussing. In order to learn a little bit more about these trends, we took the research into our own hands, and we did survey our very own Beekeeper users. We have access to over 1 million frontline workers and managers. So we wanted to know your biggest motivators, stressors, and retention strategies. And one of the key things that we heard in the survey is that most managers and frontliners are motivated by doing great work. So overall, we're seeing that there's an overlap between managers and frontliners, but there is also a bit of disconnect here. As expected, staffing shows as a top stressor for both managers and frontliners. Engagement, which is our topic for today, was another top stressor for managers, while frontliners' first and foremost concern was really their and their family's well-being. When we dug deeper into this topic of retention, recognition and acknowledgement were seen as a great way to achieve this, and we will certainly talk more about this today with Rue and Simon. Next, having a predictable and reliable shifts and having competitive benefits rounded off the top 3 retention drivers for frontliners. This is just a quick snapshot of our research. We will be publishing our complete findings in the next few weeks. So with that, I want to welcome Rue and Simon to our virtual stage and have them bring us into the world of Foodstuffs.
Hey, thanks, Yuxti. It is great to be here, joining you from Thursday morning over here in Auckland, New Zealand. Yeah, so I'm Simon Kennedy, Chief Digital Officer here, and coming up on my 4-year anniversary, actually, in the organisation and in that role. And Rue.
Thanks, Simon. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Rue, and I am an internal communications consultant here at Foodies, and I've been here for about 2.5 years now. Which is really exciting. So yeah, we just thought we'd kick off and tell you a little bit more about who we are. So we're Foodstuffs North Island, but we like to call ourselves Foodie. We have a huge team of over 24,000 people, which is pretty big for a small country like ours of only about 5 million people. We are New Zealand's largest grocery retailer. And we have quite a few different brands that cover our company. We're a cooperative and we have 3 retail brands. So we've got New World, which is a more premium offering. We have Pack and Save, which is one of the cheapest offerings in the market. We've got Foursquare, which is a more smaller corner store, convenience store type offering. And then we have Gilmore's, which is our wholesale service offering. We service 3.5 million customers per week. And we have actually last year celebrated our 100th birthday. So we've been here for New Zealanders for 100 years, which is quite a long time for New Zealand as well. And across the North Island, we have over 330 stores. And we also play a huge part in our communities, and we partner with community organisations. So each one of our supermarkets partners with a community organisation to provide food or funding to those who need it most. And so this is a little stat at the bottom there. Last year, so in the last 12 months, we've supported with 3.5 million meals to food rescue, which is really cool. I'm really proud of how we play our part. Next on, I think Simon's just going to cover a little bit about our context and what we've been through in the last few weeks, if you haven't heard.
Yeah, just it does set the scene in a way for a discussion about Frontline. Yeah, we rolled into 2023 thinking it was going to be the year finally when we'd have a year that sort of we ran our race and had our plans and did what we chose to do rather than dealing with successive waves of pandemic and lockdowns and cost of living crisis and extended supply chain stress, etc. It turned out that sort of nature had some different ideas. Just a couple of weeks ago, Cyclone Gabrielle rolled through the North Island of New Zealand. Certainly the worst weather event in the history of this country. Sadly, there was loss of life, there was extensive devastation, and all of this actually was following hot on the heels of only 2 weeks previously, what felt like a kind of once-in-a-lifetime weather event affecting the Auckland region with some severe flooding. The impact on us as an organisation across our store network at its sort of peak, we had, I think it was 33 stores that were closed, unable to trade at some point, as many as 62 stores that were either cut off, no road access, no power, no network, all 3 of those things. And I think while the event has been horrendous in many ways, our response is something we can be proud of, and that starts with our frontline. What our teams in stores, in supply chains, and on the roads in between were able to achieve was just extraordinary through that event. So from the kind of the peak of that devastation, within 6 days, we had all but 2 of our small stores back trading and operational. 2 days later, that was 100% of all stores back trading and operational. And it showed a bit of what we probably just call the magic of the co-op and what this organization is able to achieve under pressure. So I thought that was worth sharing as a bit of context of what's been going on in our world before we get into a bit more of the.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, for sharing that. I know it's been super devastating, and it's incredible to see what you've achieved in terms of response. And I think that's a nice segue into the topic of overcoming those frontline challenges and maybe stepping it in a little bit further in terms of how have you overcome those frontline challenges as well as frontline challenges on top of that devastation and the cyclone.
Yeah, and I'll probably start on that one. And firstly, I think you see the things you went through just earlier, certainly they resonate with us as well in terms of those challenges and also how kind of frontline and management see those challenges. And I'm sure in many ways, anyone who's attending this webinar is going to have some of the same things going on, or we wouldn't be here. The challenge of 24/7 type operations, widely geographically dispersed operations, large teams, extended communication lines, etc. So all of that's a challenge. But I think if I try and make it a bit more specific to our context and what we're trying to do, our overall kind of business journey and business strategy is we're on a journey, on a mission to become, we describe it as being the most customer-driven retailer in the world. We can't choose to be the biggest or have the most stores or make the most profit, but we can choose to be the most customer-driven, because if not us, who else? Why not? So that requires us to do is to be extremely customer driven, and that's more than just customer experience. I think we've always had a good strength in this organization. That 100-year history has included being good at delivering great customer experience, but customer driven takes that a bit further, and it's about really linking up insights from customers, insights you can get, including from the front line, back into the center that can be recycled into being really good decisions around how we can then align all of our decision making around that customer. So we want the customer driven, but we also need to have operational excellence, because it's through operational excellence that we can deliver on our customer promises, and that is the mission. And yet in that context, That means we're asking a lot of our teams all across the business, but for sure in the front line. And we need them to be engaged in order to really have the motivation to go on that journey with us and deliver on that promise and potential. So I think that's quite a hard thing to balance. You want that kind of real kind of customer first focus, but you want the operational excellence, which is hard work, and you want people to be engaged such that we can retain and grow them over time to create that kind of virtuous loop. And all of this in a context where, particularly for frontline roles, there is lots of competition out there for people who want good people, and people have choices. So our real kind of emphasis has been on how do we create the environment, how do we create the culture and sustain the culture such that we can retain the awesome talent we have and therefore grow it and then create that virtuous loop. So some ways that we do that, we look to set up and then certainly make sure that our people know about opportunities for growth and development, use the fact we're a large organization with different pathways that are available and make those career pathways explicit. We've been working hard to introduce new benefits, take benefits of working for us beyond what is required of us, certainly well beyond what's required of us through any kind of statute, but into what can we do to make sure we are genuinely doing the right things for our teams, taking a kind of a personalized approach to how we engage teams, both from the kind of center out, but very much using the fact that we've got awesome leadership in our locations. And I think we're probably going to pick up on that a little later as well. And a really strong emphasis on celebration and recognition. And I think that's a bit of a segue into, I think Ru's going to give us a bit of an example of one of the ways we look to celebrate with our frontline.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, I think part of what I do in my role is deliver a lot of events, and we have a raft of events throughout the year, but one of the biggest ones that's a personal highlight for me and many people here is one that we call Checkout of the Year or Checkout Operator of the Year, and it's pretty crazy. It's awesome. So all of our store teams, we run 10 events regionally, so we go out into the regions, we hire a massive auditorium, we get everyone in there, everyone dresses up, team members, families, friends, they all come along, and it's basically like this huge massive party. And then the contestants go up on stage and they literally have checkout. We have 5 lanes and they have to get through as many items as possible while having great customer service. And then they get judged and scored. And it's a really special moment to celebrate our frontline teams for everything they do every single day to deliver for our customers. And then at the end of that, the top 5 people, they then get mystery shopped in store to make sure they are one of our best checkout operators. And then at the very end of the year, we celebrate the winner at something called the Excellence Awards, which we actually just had on Saturday, which was a graduation ceremony in the day and then Excellence Awards at night, where we celebrated Checker of the Year, our Butcher of the Year, our Baker of the Year, the winners of our Values Awards, and the top graduates from each one of our learning programs that we offer. So we definitely place a lot of emphasis on events and is one of our key channels to engage our teams. And I think it's really important, especially as we come out of COVID, getting some of those events back up and running and that face-to-face connection that we lost for so long. So we've got a little video that we're hoping to play about Checker of the Year, because it's hard to describe the energy without seeing it. So we'll give that a go.
Tonight we're here at Checker of the Year. This is where we celebrate the amazing work done by the teams who are right on the front line in all our stores. We always look forward to it every year. Excited to be here. Excited to do the best and win Checker of the Year.
Not buying the food stuff, it starts to be done. The best thing about tonight is just seeing everyone come together and have a bit of fun.
So good to see the diversity at Checker of the Year. Different crazy costumes. Everyone's so excited.
Makes us all feel special and show our talents. This is like my first time competing and I'm super hyped to do it. I'm so excited.
The support you see from all of the teams and all of the stores and the sense of family to all of these guys is just incredible.
Yeah, Foodies definitely do a really great job of bringing us all together. So we're pretty lucky.
This is real fun and get together, dress up, just let loose. I've been in the car 4 years, and this energy that you get in the room at Checker of the Year is just untouchable.
I love Checker of the Year. Ru, Simon, you already know that I'm a huge fan, and one of my aspirations is to be a part of that someday, experiencing it in person. I feel like that would be amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I did want to touch on a few of your previous comments, Simon and Ru, specifically around some of the ways in which you are hoping to retain and also attract talent. One of the things you mentioned is wanting to make sure that there are career development and career opportunities within the organization, as well as benefits, competitive benefits. And a lot of that has to do with education and making sure that your local leaders have that information and that you're empowering your teams with that information. Can you talk a little bit about how you ensure that everyone's aware of career development opportunities, benefits? How do you get that information into the hands of your great leaders?
Sure. Ru, do you want me to take that, or we can go either way on this?
Kick it off. Go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think we would say we're pretty good in this space, but we aren't finished yet. So let's just be clear, like not perfect in every way by a long stretch in this area. But what we've been doing is looking to, I guess, bring a bit more formal structure to our learning pathways and the growth and career development options that our people have. So for example, making what here locally called NZQA, so New Zealand Qualification Association, the A might mean something else, quality assessment, actual certificates, like educational certificates that you get from completing internal Foodstuffs courses. So bring that actual kind of formal development side to it, making it easier and more likely that people can find ways to move through what maybe feel like unconventional pathways through their career. That might be someone who has started out in a supply chain role and maybe actually has some talent around, say, digital skills or technical skills, which could just be something they're interested in their spare time as opposed to anything educational background. Actually, how might we expose them to some things maybe that my team do and look to potentially involve them as someone in a project, but in a frontline role, and then that could be a pathway into a more technology-based career for them as they progress through. We've recently deployed a new learning management platform, and that gives us the ability to properly track and record and recognize and therefore celebrate training accomplishments that people achieve. And then we can link all of that into our kind of communications platform. And that's probably the thing you're hinting at there, Yuxley, is then bring that to life through our kind of communications platform, through our Beekeeper platform and those comms channels to make sure people know about the good stuff that's out there. Probably that's a few thoughts. Ru, anything you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to touch on, Steve, you also talked about attraction. And that's definitely a challenge in the kind of marketing environment that we're facing at the moment. There's definitely a perception of some of our frontline roles that a supermarket job is something you only have at high school or while you're studying at university. It's temporary, but I think, again, to Simon's point, just making sure that people are aware that there are great career opportunities here. And we have lots of stories of people going from frontline checkout operators and moving all the way through to become managers, department managers, store managers, and then actually on to becoming owner operators. So there's a lot of those stories, and it's just about telling those. And then also on the other side of attraction, we've done a lot of work in the last couple of years around that and our employer brand. My previous role at Foodies was in the talent and recruitment space, and we tried to get really good at telling our amazing stories. We've got a diversity and inclusion working group that started a couple of years ago, letting people know how important it is for us to look after our people, make sure everybody here feels like they belong, as well as all the different opportunities we have. Like we have also got an intern program. And then it's also about being smart with social media. We also had a video on TikTok that went viral, which was really cool and something we'd never done before. Being more active on LinkedIn, things like that really help with attraction.
Ru, you'll definitely have to share that TikTok video with us. We definitely want to see that.
Yeah, okay.
That's fantastic. And I think that's a fantastic segue into our next question regarding the uniqueness about Foodstuffs. And I think you spoke to the opportunity of that career growth, starting out on the floor as a checker and then moving your way all the way through to maybe even owner operator. So definitely want to talk a little bit about that uniqueness about your organization and how that plays to strengthen your organization and your engagement with your frontline workforce.
Yeah, definitely. I think something that we take a lot of pride in that differentiates us in the market is our cooperative model and our owner-operator model. It's a really robust pathway to become an owner-operator. And like I said, the people who become owner-operators have been with us for 30, 40 years sometimes, and they're really genuinely passionate about what they do. They care about their team. They care about the community. And they really believe in the purpose and why we're here, which is to make sure New Zealanders get more out of by making sure they have access to healthy and affordable food and the essentials, which are really important for people right now. The owner-operator model means that we operate as a true co-op, not so much like a franchise, which means that our owner-operators are key decision makers in our organisation. They have the strength of the co-op behind them. But they also are able and they have the freedom to make those decisions that are right for them and their business and right for their communities. We definitely are really proud of how that works. And the pathway to become an owner-operator, in the past, it used to just be if you had enough money, you could buy a supermarket. But now we have an assessment program. They have to have been working in our stores for several years. They have to understand our business inside and out. They then go on a trainee operator program where they get assessed. And then once they're an approved operator, they can then go on to be placed in a store. And that's also, there's a panel of decision makers who decide who gets to go in what store based on their skill set and what's going to be right for that store in the community. So a lot of thought goes into that. And I think that's a real strength of ours. Did you have anything to add, Simon?
Yeah, I just thought I'd share an insight that might be relevant for people who maybe aren't in a cooperative. I think there's something in this. I remember before I joined here, people knew where I was coming to, and they said, "Oh, you're going into a cooperative? That's going to be a nightmare, isn't it? You're trying to run technology in that kind of space. You're going to have 300 people who are trying to tell you what to do, and you're going to have to convince them one at a time." And I didn't. Good point. But it hasn't been like that. We have some really good structures that give our owner-operator community representation into decision-making in an effective way. That means I am working with a small representative group of owners in each banner and then a group across all of the collective banners. And that's awesome for me. That's a group I can work with to understand what they need in their operating environment, what's going to work, what's not going to work. But the other thing that really happens here is me and my team will get feedback super fast. If it's not right, we will know within minutes. And that's not necessarily what I've experienced elsewhere. So I think it can be the case that the center team, to be slightly bluntly, is slightly too strong and is able to just do stuff to people. Then that's going to break down good, effective communication in those feedback loops. Here, because we have an owner-operator in each of our stores, they're literally invested in the business. They care passionately about the business, about their people, about their communities. We get that feedback straight away. I guess if I would find myself back in a more sort of corporate type environment, I'd be thinking about how might I genuinely empower those frontline leadership positions to feel comfortable providing really challenging feedback. Because one thing that's good about our own operators is they're very comfortable providing challenging feedback, but that's a positive thing, right? That's what allows us to get better and get it right.
Yeah, that's amazing. The positioning of that cooperative model as your real strength here. And what's unique about your organization, did it play a role or how did it affect your response with the cyclone? I know you said you're really proud of your response time. Did that feedback loop play into that? And what did that dynamic really look like for you and your organization?
Yeah, actually, I might kind of take us back a bit because I think in a way that what we saw through the cyclone was a little bit of a continuation of what we learned through COVID. And kind of COVID landed in different ways across the world. Most of us, wherever we're from, we went through something similar in terms of the sort of the waves that came through and the sort of lockdowns, etc. As that first wave hit New Zealand, so this is around March 2020, end of Feb 2020 through March and April in particular, we had to evolve really fast in terms of our kind of decision making, and we had crisis management processes, etc. before that, but this was a little different because this was settling in for being a long-term event. And what was key, looking back to how we managed that, was we set up very effective communication structures right across the co-op, but in particular, how did we link kind of center operations to store operations and link in the owner operators in each store into that 7-day-a-week daily calls, leveraging what at the time almost felt like fairly new technology. People were getting used to things like Teams meetings and stuff, but the 7-day-a-week calls with around about 400 people on to get the message out, to get feedback back. And what I think started to happen was there was an acceptance that we had to make fast decisions. There was no kind of choice about that. And we had to make fast decisions based on incomplete information a lot of the time. and we just needed to be comfortable with it. So one way I've described that period is there was peak commitment because everyone was in the same situation. We were all dealing with huge stress in terms of keep New Zealand fed, actually, was the challenge. But also, obviously, we're all dealing with things in our kind of our own personal lives and family spaces, etc. So everyone's under huge stress, but there's massive commitment to driving the outcomes we needed. So peak commitment, but also what I would describe as peak forgiveness, because everyone recognized we're all kind of in it together and we're all trying to achieve the same thing. What if it doesn't work, if it goes slightly wrong, if we try it and it fails? Yeah, everyone knew that we were trying to do the right thing. That was actually really powerful because when there was that kind of peak forgiveness in place, people were prepared to try stuff, to probably take a risk, they lost the fear of it going wrong, and then we made amazing things happen. So I think we probably learned a bit from that. We learned specifically on how to do rapid communications and rapid decision making, but also culturally how to be in that mode of, look, we need to do something. Doing nothing is not a good option here. So we need to do something. Let's all be on board with it and commit to each other. And I think that probably then showed up again through the cyclone, because at the peak of the impact of the cyclone, frankly, there were no communications for large areas of the North Island because the power was down, the cell towers were down, the fibre was cut. So there simply wasn't there while we got that stood up again. And so people relied on the fact of knowing what to do almost intuitively based on that learned experience of this is how we respond in a crisis. So to answer the question, I almost can't remember what the question was.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic segue into our next. And when we're talking about dealing with rapid changes, you spoke a little bit about COVID and what that presented to your organization as well as the cyclone. Aside from what you've already discussed, in general, any other rapid changes and how you...
Yeah, I think I probably would say, yep, all of what I've just went through. But I think maybe the other thing, this may feel like not related, but I think it is related, is Rue mentioned earlier connection to our values and that we look to the way we communicate and so on. There's a connection to values. Yeah, I've never been in an organization that's got bad values. No one writes on the wall, hey, we suck and we don't like our customers and we're all going to be idiots to each other. So it has well articulated positive values, but I've never been anywhere else that really seems to live them every day the way they're lived here. And I think, through some really good patient work to communicate, reinforce, and recognize and celebrate where we see those values, in a way that helps with the fast decision making and the fast action, because it creates that sense of shared purpose and sort of psychological safety that we can all operate within. I think it's probably a truism, but that kind of strength of culture and how the culture shows up daily in the values that people are living makes such a difference, even when it comes down to quite practical, tactical things around fast decision making, around operational decisions.
Yeah, I've got a couple of stories as well, I think, to just highlight some of those ways that we live our values. And we have this thing at Foodstuffs that's not a value, but we call it the co-op spirit or the magic of our co-op. We always talk about this thing, and it's really hard to describe it. I think it's a combination of living all of our values all at once. There's been a few stories throughout the cyclone that have highlighted this for people who got it. They knew how it worked, but never really saw it in real life or really felt it. So, for example, there was a store, New World Newmarket, that flooded in the Auckland floods, which was a few weeks before the cyclone. And people just rocked up there with gumboots, ready to help out. Just where do you want me kind of thing. And I think that's also a bit of a New Zealand mentality, that we have such a small community that people are always ready to just jump in, get stuck in and help out. Another really cool example was in those Auckland floods, there was a couple of stores that were closed for a while. And one of the stores had staff members who couldn't make it to work because roads closed, roads that were flooded. And they put the call out actually on Beekeeper and through their network and said, hey, is anyone out there able to help out to keep my store open? I'm looking for more checkout operators. And so another store from a different brand put their hand up and said, yep, I've got 2 people coming over there right now. And so we actually had checkout operators wearing different uniforms, Pack and Save uniforms, working at checkouts in a New World store. And for customers, they see those 2 brands as competitors, even though we are one co-op. But at the end of the day, we as a co-op are there to make sure our stores are open and we're keeping our communities fed. And that's our number one priority after keeping our team safe. And so that just really showed that we're all in it together. It doesn't matter what brand we work in, but as long as we're keeping our customers and communities fed, that's the main thing. And I think that those kinds of stories show up for us every single day. And it's amazing.
That's so inspiring, Rue. Simon, thank you so much. So insightful. I'm learning so much. lastly here, I want to know, what does the future look like for Foodstuffs?
Yeah, wow. That's a big question. The future is changing quickly, and we need to make sure that technology is always evolving. Our stores are going to look different in the future, but I think for us, we believe that the importance of that human element to everything we do is never going to go away, and we're always going to make sure that we put our people first, and that's really at the heart of everything we do. And so we want to, in the future, make sure that our brands are really strong. People want to stay with us. People want to work for us. Because of the continuing on our focus with having great career opportunities, having great learning and development available, and just showing people what a great place it is to work here at Foodies. Because at the end of the day, it's about having a great culture. It's about having competitive benefits. It's not always about paying the best, because that might be why people want to join, but it's not what makes people stay at the end of the day. And we recognize that. And so, yeah, I think we'll just continue on our focus of people and making sure that kind of comes through in everything we do. Do you have any thoughts, Simon, on what does the future look like?
I think you've covered it very well. So I'll keep the crystal ball away. Shout out to the beekeeper team, though. So just looking at the slide that's on screen, fun fact, so that's a New World truck. Everyone can probably tell that New World truck is in front of New Zealand's Parliament building. Less people will know that. And even fewer people will know that our Parliament building is known as the Beehive. So that is a bit of marketing genius right there from someone. Well done on that. Yeah, but no, so future's good. Future looks good.
Amazing. Thank you, Simon and Rue. Next here, a quick summary of those 5 top tips for empowering frontline teams that we've collected just based on our discussion today. I'm not sure if you would like to touch on any of these here before we open it up to questions.
Yeah, I'll do a little run through, because these kinds of lists can look a bit reductive in a way. So obviously, you want to develop your people. Why even put it on the list? So I think just to touch on each of those, creating the awesome place for awesome people, achieve awesome things. What that means for us here is making sure we're leveraging the strengths we've got. So use the strengths we have as a co-op, that kind of magic as a co-op, create the environment which everyone feels they can belong, and then allow the good things to happen. I think that develop your people. So specifically those kind of structured, meaningful pathways, actual qualifications people can aspire to, and will have benefits for them personally and in their career more generally. Providing time for training, expecting that people create time for training, both in terms of what they do personally and what they provide to others. Celebrate your people. We talked a lot about having the events, the programs, and I think they build momentum over time. Checker of the Year has been going on for 75 years, actually, so that has got a huge momentum. But the things like the Excellence Awards we ran, the Thanks program we have, they've been around now for a few years and they have that traction. Build a culture worth belonging to. Again, for us, that's about having a genuine commitment around here for New Zealand. And we know now through experience that shows up is really what was motivating people to put in the extra yards, the extra effort. Another story from the cyclone, one of our worst hit communities, a place called Wairoa out on the East Coast, the New World store there, it became just absolutely pivotal to that community. There were 2 team members there whose own houses had been completely ruined by the floods, and they were determined to come into work despite that, because they recognized the community needed them, which is just extraordinary, really, when you think about what that means at a personal level, to build that culture worth belonging to and have leaders worth following. So again, specifically for us, that means investment of, time, money, resources into leadership programs, and making sure that we are creating a leadership culture where people they're accessible, they're grounded, the culture is imbued in them as well. They're not just talking the values, they're living the values. So yeah, I wanted to call out a few specifics on that list and not just leave it as a little laundry list. But yeah, I think that's us. If there's some Q&A, that'd be great.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Rue, Simon, this has been great. So we do have some questions. We're running really tight on time here, so we'll just ask a couple of them because the conversation has been great. We saw the Checker of the Year and everything, all the great stories. So one question that came in from the audience was, what advice would you give retailers that are considering technology and digitization that are important considerations when considering transformations to enable the business to continue to achieve the company's targets while supporting the people and the community behind each store? Do we catch all of that?
Okay. This feels like there's quite a lot in that. Is that written down somewhere? Is that in the text? If I can see it, that might help.
I will, spoiler, back end send that to you, Simon, so that you can see it.
Awesome, because I was trying to figure out what's the question behind the question. So if someone's considering technology and digitization, one one thought I'd want them to consider is, do they see the future anyway being less technology enabled and less digital? It seems unlikely. So that train is moving. There's probably some choices about how fast, but not really choices about when or whether. And probably if there may be a sort of implied concern in the question about the tension between doing things right with people and doing things with technology instead. And I don't necessarily think that's a choice. I think the value of human interaction and human experience is actually going to go up. That seems to me like the long-term trend is that people are going to value human experience even more than they do now, because there are going to be a lot of aspects of our lives where the technology does take care of it. And so I would say, look to be kind of customer-led and values-led and allow the technology to do the things it can be good at, but don't mistake technology as doing the things that humans are good at. And that might be a way to think about it. Achieving the company's targets while supporting the people. Be very clear on what the overall goals of the organization are. Let's have a vision of where we're trying to get to, translate that into some goals, and then that may translate into some targets, and not just set the target and shoot at it out well. A few thoughts there.
Awesome. Great. So I think we have time for one more question, if that's all right with everybody. And it's, how would you quantify the impact of leaving frontline teams without a solution like Beekeeper? So if they were to stick with paper and pen.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think for us, we're still on that journey to digitizing our whole team. We have about 60 stores on Beekeeper at the moment out of the 330, but some of those stores are really small. And at the moment, one of our key focuses, I think, in this environment of the rising cost of living, trying to keep our prices as low as possible for customers, is for us to become as efficient and productive as possible without compromising on our customer promises and what our customers want from us most right now, which is pretty much just to have cheap groceries, because everything is so expensive right now. So in order to do that, I think empowering the frontline with digital tools to set them up for success, the right information, having great communication, and Beekeepers really helping to support us with that. And I think that's the evolution that we're on right now to becoming the most customer-driven retailer in the world. So I think, without that, we probably would be relying on, face-to-face team briefings, notice boards. That's where we were before. And also lots of different solutions like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger to communicate with your teams, which aren't the most efficient and the best way forward. So Beekeeper is definitely helping us with all of that.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in, I will be quick though, Logan, but we are rolling out platforms and improve measures around productivity and efficiency. We also measure engagement well. So while we haven't looked to specifically link Beekeeper itself to outcomes in terms of productivity, we can correlate and see the patterns. So we talked about the 60 stores we're at. That's around 40% of our store population in those 60 stores. It tends to be the larger stores that have taken it. So that's a decent size. And then we can compare the outcomes we're getting in the stores with that solution to others, kind of see that.
Great. So there are a handful of other questions. We will email you the answers to those questions. We'll answer them after this, but we're just a few minutes over time. That's always a really good sign for us, is that the conversation's really good. So thank you, everybody, for sticking around. Just to close out the session today, just to talk a little bit about how Beekeeper can help you, frontline empowerment like Foodstuffs. We've built a solution that brings all the relevant information, processes to the hands of your frontline team. It's a workspace specifically designed for the frontline based on 3 pillars: productivity, comms and collaboration, and employee services. And you don't have to take our word for it like Foodstuffs. There's thousands of customers using Beekeeper across the world. And with that, I want to thank Rue and Simon for your time today. It's been amazing. Yusti, you've been a great host. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody in the audience for coming and joining and thinking about empowering your frontline. I think that's one of the biggest thanks that we have. And so with that, we'll close out and enjoy the rest of your day. And I think morning in New Zealand. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.